Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Great to have you with us again. Today, we're diving into a topic that's, well, it's really buzzing right now. The growing role of AI chatbots in mental health. We've gathered a whole stack of research to give you, our listeners, a really clear picture of this rapidly evolving field.
And it's definitely evolving fast. The interest from the scientific community is undeniable. Just to give you an idea, over the last decade, the number of studies looking into chatbots for psychological and psychiatric therapy has shot up by about 46% annually.
Wow, 46% a year. That's incredible. It really shows how relevant this is becoming.
Exactly.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the effectiveness, the applications, the pros, the cons, the ethical side of things, and the future of these AI chatbots in therapy. We want to give you the essential knowledge without, making your head spin. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the million-dollar question. Do these chatbots actually work for mental health support? What's the science saying?
Well, the evidence we're seeing from meta-analyses and systematic reviews, these are studies that kind of pool results from lots of individual studies. It's actually quite promising.
Promising how?
They're showing that AI chatbots can be effective in reducing symptoms of common mental health issues like depression and anxiety.
Okay, now that's really interesting because we're not just talking small improvements, are we? I saw one study, Therabot, I think. It reported something like a 51% average drop in depression symptoms and 31% for anxiety. That seems significant.
It is significant. Those numbers really do get close to what you might see in traditional outpatient therapy. It definitely makes you consider how this could shift the landscape, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Could AI become a sort of first line of support for some people?
It's a very relevant question. And as I said, several meta-analyses back this up. For example, one found significant improvements for depression. The effect size was around minus 0.26, and for anxiety, about minus 0.19. And this was in shorter-term treatments, usually up to about 8 weeks. Another analysis also reported these kinds of reductions using these conversational AI agents.
That sounds really encouraging. But I'm guessing it's not all straightforward. Are there important nuances we should be aware of?
Oh, definitely. It's crucial to note that the evidence for chatbots improving subjective well-being, how good someone feels overall, is a bit weaker right now. And treatment duration seems key. The biggest benefits for depression and anxiety often appear around that 8-week mark. One study even found no significant effects at a 3-month follow-up, which raises questions about how long these benefits last.
Interesting. So maybe good for a boost, but sustained improvement is still a question mark.
Potentially, yes. We need more long-term data.
And what about specific groups? Are they equally helpful for everyone, or do we see differences?
Not necessarily identical for everyone, but there are some interesting findings. One study found that a chatbot delivering a self-help intervention for depression was actually better than just giving university students self-help books, less depression and anxiety. They've also shown effectiveness in helping individuals who are managing chronic physical diseases, which often come with mental health challenges, so potential across different populations.
Right, we've got a summary table here. Yeah, Zhang et al. Raised meta-analysis showing that short-term reduction in depression and anxiety. And Liu's study with students noted significant reductions, but also a higher therapeutic bond with a chatbot. That's fascinating. Even Therabot showing decreases in body image concern for eating disorders.
Exactly. But as we mentioned, that JMIR study from 2020 flags that the improvement in subjective well-being isn't as clear-cut. It's important to keep a balanced view.
Absolutely. So the takeaway seems to be chatbots show real potential, especially short-term, for common symptoms like depression and anxiety. But now, let's dig deeper into how they're being used beyond just simulating a therapy chat. What are the practical applications in mental health?
The applications are really quite broad. One major use is providing emotional support and containment during distress. Some users actually describe interacting with these bots as having an emotional sanctuary, a place to vent or process difficult feelings without judgment.
That sounds incredibly valuable, especially if someone feels isolated or can't reach out immediately.
Precisely. Another key function is psychoeducation. Chatbots can deliver personalized information about mental health conditions, coping techniques, self-care strategies. Many incorporate exercises based on cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or guide users in mindfulness practices.
Like an interactive self-help guide available 24/7.
You got it. Plus, they're proving useful for patient tracking and symptom monitoring. They can log daily mood, generate weekly reports for human therapists, assist with self-assessments, and even potentially flag significant mood changes to professionals.
That could be critical for early intervention, catching relapses or crises sooner.
It could be. And we shouldn't forget other applications like potentially improving treatment adherence, helping people stick to their therapy plans, also facilitating prevention efforts, and reducing stigma by offering an anonymous way to seek support. Promoting general well-being through things like digital mindfulness training is another area.
Looking at our notes again. Yeah, emotional support provides that safe space. Psychoeducation delivers CBT and mindfulness exercises. Patient tracking for daily mood monitoring and self-assessments. Potential for treatment adherence, prevention, well-being. And that anonymity point for reducing stigma feels really important.
It is. They're turning out to be quite versatile tools with potential across many facets of mental health care.
Okay, now that we have a clear idea of how they work and what they're used for, let's talk advantages. What are the specific benefits compared to traditional therapy? Why might someone choose a chatbot?
One of the biggest advantages, undoubtedly, is accessibility. Geographical and temporal accessibility. Chatbots are available 24/7, right? That eliminates barriers like location or office hours that often make traditional therapy hard to access. Just imagine getting support anytime, anywhere.
That's a game changer for so many people, especially in remote areas or with difficult work schedules.
Absolutely. Another significant plus is the potential for cost reduction. Traditional therapy can be expensive, putting it out of reach for many. Chatbots can offer a much more affordable, sometimes even free alternative. That really democratizes access to some level of support.
And the anonymity factor you mentioned earlier is huge too, right? The stigma around mental health is still very real.
It is. Many people hesitate to seek help because of it. A chatbot offers a private, non-judgmental space to open up without that fear.
That makes sense. What else?
Well, there's the consistency. Chatbots provide consistent, non-judgmental support. They don't have bad days, they don't get tired or distracted. That uniformity can be really helpful.
And what about personalization? Can they tailor the experience?
Yes, that's another potential advantage. Using machine learning, they can theoretically learn from user interactions and adapt interventions, making the support more relevant over time.
Okay, so accessibility, cost, anonymity, consistency, personalization. Sounds pretty good on paper, but we know there are always downsides. What are the major limitations and disadvantages here?
Probably the most significant limitation is the lack of genuine empathy and deep emotional understanding. Chatbots can mimic empathetic responses based on patterns, sure, but they can't truly feel or grasp the nuances of human emotion, nonverbal cues, or complex emotional contexts the way a human can.
Right. It's pattern recognition versus genuine understanding and connection. It's like reading from a script versus truly feeling the emotions.
Exactly. And this leads to difficulties in handling complex situations, acute crises, or severe mental disorders. There's a real risk of chatbots giving inadequate or even harmful advice in a crisis situation. They just aren't equipped to diagnose or treat serious issues that need professional expertise.
That's a serious concern. And what about data privacy and security? We're talking about incredibly sensitive personal health information.
It's a massive concern. The risk of data breaches, misuse of data, or unauthorized access is very real. Sharing your deepest thoughts with an app, you need robust safeguards, and it's not clear they're always there.
And are there other risks, like people becoming too reliant on them?
Yes, there's the potential for overdependence and maybe even social isolation if people start substituting AI interaction for human connection. Plus, limitations in adapting to individual needs and cultural diversity. What works in one cultural context might not translate well, or might even be inappropriate in another. Algorithmic bias is also a risk here.
These are really critical points. Let's move on to directly comparing AI chatbot therapy with therapy from human psychologists or psychiatrists. What are the fundamental differences?
The core difference really lies in that empathetic connection and emotional depth. Human therapy involves this rich interaction where a therapist picks up on subtle cues, adjusts their approach dynamically, and builds a strong therapeutic relationship. That alliance is often key to success.
But interestingly, you mentioned earlier in our notes confirm, some studies suggest users can form a kind of therapeutic alliance with chatbots. And there was that surprising study where therapists couldn't reliably tell AI human transcripts from human ones, even rating the AI ones higher sometimes, and the ChatGPT one being rated higher than human therapists in some scenarios.
Those findings are definitely intriguing and perhaps speak to how well AI can simulate certain aspects of therapeutic conversation, especially initially. However, when it comes to the depth of treatment, human therapists can navigate complex issues, trauma, and underlying patterns with far more nuance and personalization. Chatbots tend to excel more at structured interventions, like delivering standard CBT exercises, but struggle with the deeper, more ambiguous stuff.
So in terms of clinical outcomes,
It seems traditional therapy is often considered more effective for long-term anxiety reduction, for instance. Chatbots have shown that short-term efficacy, particularly for depression and anxiety symptoms. There was also that finding that general-purpose chatbots sometimes outperformed specific therapeutic ones in correcting cognitive biases, which is, well, unexpected.
it really highlights the complexity of comparing them directly, different strengths, different weaknesses.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the rules now. What's the regulatory landscape like for AI in mental health? Is anyone overseeing this?
Honestly, the regulatory landscape is still in its very early stages. It's nascent. Most AI chatbots in this space are operating without specific guidelines or dedicated oversight. But there's a growing recognition that we need regulations for safety, efficacy, and ethical use.
So things are starting to happen. Any specific initiatives?
Yes, definitely. In the US, states like Utah, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Texas, Illinois, they're either introducing or considering legislation specifically for AI in mental health services. These often focus on things like ensuring licensed professionals are involved, transparency about using AI, informed consent, and robust data privacy.
What about accountability? Who's responsible if something goes wrong?
That's a key part of the discussion, too. Some proposals even suggest regulating certain AI chatbots as medical devices. Internationally, the EU passed its AI Act in 2024, which will have implications, and the World Health Organization has put out guidelines on responsible AI systems.
And our professional bodies weighing in.
Yes, organizations like the American Psychological Association, APA, have voiced concerns about unregulated chatbots. They're advocating for federal action, pushing for safeguards, investigating products that use terms like psychologist without the credentials, and urging basic safety features like clear links to crisis helplines, like the 988 Lifeline.
So it sounds like there's a growing awareness of the need for guardrails, even if they're not fully in place yet.
Absolutely. It reflects the understanding that this technology brings both huge opportunities and significant challenges that need careful management.
Finally, let's look ahead. What future trends can we expect? How might AI chatbots evolve in the mental health space?
The future looks pretty dynamic, driven by advances in natural language processing and machine learning. We can probably expect chatbots to become more sophisticated emotionally, or at least better at simulating emotional intelligence, showing more apparent empathy and understanding context better.
What about how we interact with them?
We'll likely see more multimodal interactions integrating text, voice, maybe even video analysis for richer, more natural communication.
And personalization, you mentioned that earlier.
Yes, the trend is definitely towards hyper-personalization. Analyzing individual data to tailor interventions, maybe even predict needs proactively, and offer more targeted support.
Do you see them working more closely with human therapists?
That seems very likely. Greater integration into hybrid models of care, where the chatbot supports the work of a human professional, perhaps handling check-ins or delivering exercises between sessions.
Any other big potential developments?
There's potential for AI to assist in diagnosis, early detection, and prevention by analyzing large data sets for patterns humans might miss. And we'll probably see more specialized chatbots designed for specific populations or conditions, like teenagers with anxiety or people managing PTSD.
Okay, so wrapping things up, AI chatbots clearly offer significant potential in mental health. They improve access, can lower costs, show some short-term effectiveness for common symptoms, and have diverse applications. But the limitations are crucial. The lack of genuine empathy, struggles with complex cases and crises, and major ethical concerns around privacy, bias, and accountability.
Exactly. While AI can simulate therapy surprisingly well sometimes, even getting high ratings and initial interactions, that deep human connection, the ability to navigate profound complexity, that remains the strength of traditional human therapy.
So the future likely isn't AI replacing therapists, but perhaps working alongside them.
That seems to be the most probable and perhaps the most beneficial path forward, AI as a complementary tool within a hybrid care model, augmenting what human professionals do.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, our listeners, to ponder. How do we strike the right balance between leveraging these powerful technological advancements and preserving the fundamental human need for connection and empathy in mental health care? What are the long-term societal implications of weaving AI so deeply into such a sensitive part of our lives? Something to think about. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. We hope you found it as insightful as we did.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And before you go, please do leave us your thoughts and comments below. We genuinely read them, and they help shape future deep dives. If you enjoyed this, give us a like. It really helps the channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration, and hit that notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, keep exploring.